You're listening to The Q Switch with your host, Spence.
Welcome, one and all to the Q Switch Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Spence, and the mission of this show is to tackle subjects currently impacting ophthalmology, where we attract the innovators, thought leaders, and forward thinkers shaping the field of ophthalmology today to discuss their unique perspectives. The title of today's episode is Vision Beyond the City, Solar Retina Care and Rural Medicine. So let's get into it. I'm thrilled to be joined by two extraordinary professionals. Dr. Jed Assam, a board-certified and fellowship-trained retina surgeon with deep roots in the Mount Rushmore state, and Kelly Assam, practice administrator, who together are co-founders of Vitreoretinal Alliance Vision, a newly established, independent, full-service vitreoretinal solar practice that opened its doors in 2025. Dr. Assam brings excellence in treating complex retinal diseases, including diabetic retinopathy, age-related macular degeneration, retinal detachments, and more, with academic honors and leadership roles with his training years. Kelly brings strategic practice development and operational expertise, having built revenue operating systems and led practice growth initiatives across tech and healthcare settings. Today, we'll talk about their journey from large urban medical centers, including Dr. Assam's fellowship experience in San Antonio, Texas, to launching a solar retina practice in rural South Dakota, the challenges, the triumphs of rural medicine, innovation in patient care, and how they've achieved both clinical excellence and operational success. So let's get into it. Dr. Assam, Kelly, thanks for taking time for the Q Switch. Welcome to the show.
Thank you
Thank
for that
you.
wonderful introduction.
Yes, we're very excited to be here.
Well, good. So let's start with your journey and some of your motivations. Dr. Assam, walk us through your personal and professional journey from growing up in Sioux Falls, training in anatomy and medicine, to fellowship in San Antonio, and how those experiences shaped your approach to patient care.
Absolutely. So for me, there was always an interest with working with my hands. Growing up in a rural state, there was always an opportunity to participate in helping others. And so kind of melding those two things together was really an exciting way to bridge into medicine. And I had an opportunity to have several wonderful mentors along the way. And there's a lot of focus for our community actually in the healthcare setting. So the South Dakota state really two large components of the industry are going to be healthcare and the support of the farming and rural communities that are in it. So that kind of prepared the foundations for the path that I would grow into medicine. And then from there ended up going to a clinical anatomy degree actually down in Omaha, Nebraska, which kind of further solidified the desire for surgery and the amazing intricacies of anatomy, and trying to find a space that really honed in on being able to have a piece of really intricate design with your work. And ophthalmology really was a piece that kind of came through in medical school as I went through at the University of South Dakota, Sanford School of Medicine. Really kind of a number of amazing pathways as I went through medical school training. I had a further opportunity to participate in a rural medicine program, and that really kind of gave me a deeper heart for the rural communities that I serve now. As I prepared to go off to residency and fellowship training down in Texas, I did my residency at the University of Texas Medical Branch in Galveston. Had an opportunity to work with a number of amazing professionals there who really helped me grow in my knowledge base and surgical skill. And then that was just further refined as I went down to UT San Antonio afterwards for fellowship in vitreoretinal surgery. And there came across many amazing mentors as well, including Dr. Calvin Mine, Dr. Aaron Houghton, and also Dr. Gary Lane, just people who really made a profound impact in my career. And not to forget Dr. Armitage Harper. So just a number of amazing professionals that I ran across in my training years.
Well, I will tell you this, that that's quite the journey. Thanks for sharing that. So it sounds like you're really, really well prepared for what you're doing today, and I'm sure you're doing an awesome job. So what inspired you both as professionals and partners to leave the larger established practices and organizations of San Antonio, Texas, to make the jump to Vance Thompson Vision, bringing you home to Sioux Falls, and finally taking that courageous leap together to start your own independent retina practice in VRA Vision?
Well, for me, the goal to come back and serve my community in South Dakota was always certainly in the framework. I knew I wanted to come back to Sioux Falls in South Dakota to set up practice. Independent practice was a consideration, but I had also had an amazing opportunity during medical school training and even prior to that to work with the amazing founders at Advanced Thompson Vision, who were in those days actually in their early stages of setting up what has become an absolutely amazing powerhouse, both in our local community, but even more nationally and abroad. So it was very exciting that they would even consider me as to be a part of their practice. And so to have that as a starting foundation to be able to launch your career path with, move to where I am now, where now I've been able to gain the skill sets that you get with being able to work with some of the great minds in the community and then take that to further shape it with the nimbleness of being in a more private practice, solo practice setting. You're able to just move at a more rapid rate than you can with a larger group because there is respecting a lot of opinions, and all those opinions are always valued and wonderful. But it is can be done much quicker in a solo practice setting, and that was kind of the additional impulse that I was looking for to be able to continue to hone and shape my practice the way that I felt that I could continue to best serve the community while working still with those great minds at Advanced Thompson Vision.
So, Kelly, I mean, obviously you're not from the area like Dr. Assam is, so your experience may be a little different. So, what's your response to that same question?
Yeah. So having moved here with Doctor here to South Dakota, I've always been in larger cities and my background in tech and revenue ops and systems building. And I've actually always been in startups my whole
Oh,
career.
really? Did not know
Yes.
that. Okay, all right.
From my very first job to now, I've just found myself in startups in the tech setting. So a lot of software, a lot of SaaS. So when there was a decision to open, I know you've always had a dream to open your own solo practice, and then when the opportunity presented, it was kind of a no-brainer of, well, I have these skill sets of helping startups with their systems, their operations. Systems not only just translate to like the tech, right? But it informs every part of the decision making at the top. Data, right? It organizes the data and analytics. So I'm always used to bringing order to chaos, building things from the ground up. When I was in consulting, folks would call our firm or company to come in to help optimize whatever processes there were. So just kind of translating all of that. It was a very easy decision for me to come in and use those skills. And here I am at another startup, slightly different setting in the medical realm. However, the problems at the foundation are the same, right? How do we improve operations and bring efficiency into, and also just building new processes where there is none.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
it's exciting for me. I actually have a public health background as well.
Okay.
That was my degree in undergrad. And so I always knew that I would get back into the intersection of health and tech and just bringing all the other things I've learned in my career to full circle. And this is that full circle moment. So it's actually been really cool.
Well, I would tell you with respect to your background and experience, which again, you're just sharing with me for the first time. I mean, having all that experience, that muscle memory, you can recognize situations and
Yes.
circumstances and be able to sidestep those landmines that a lot of people, end up, I think running into not knowing and being for the first time in this real startup scenario. So that's obviously an advantage for the two of you.
I'll also add my wheelhouse, I guess you can say, is in that like tech or consulting setting when things are moving so quickly and you have to come in and make sense of what is happening so that you can come and be that business therapist, essentially. That has been my role, to be a business therapist from that systems lens, but really you're touching every aspect of every, different departments or businesses to be able to diagnose and treat the issues using the tools at my disposal. And so one thing that we've always talked about is to mitigate the risk, right?
Ah.
Because no activity in this world is riskless. And so understanding with the foundation that everything has a risk and you just kind of start grading it and then you start to mitigate based on those levels that you accept as the risk. So in business, right? In this new world of the Retina startup and new processes, it's like, okay, well, just attacking problems that rise every day with a very methodical view has kind of been where I can step in.
I will just say that beyond her methodicalness and ability to really bring that order into the business, her perspective that she brings from the tech realm has really kind of been helpful as we in medicine and in retina as well and ophthalmology begin to make those transitions to trying to embrace more of things that are modernizing, like AI-based tools and looking at things that help to increase efficiency where we're having different manpower shortages, which has been an interesting part of starting a new practice as we try to grow, but also mold into being able to still perform at the degree that we expect to be able to provide excellence to the patients we serve in our community. So having her perspective has been very, very incredible at this point. So very
Thank
appreciative.
you.
Well, I will say that, I mean, particularly in ophthalmology, very tech forward, it's always, like you said, fast moving, and particularly with technology and things like you mentioned, AI and so on, the equipment, the devices, instrumentation, either you get with it or you get left behind. So I think you guys are certainly working together to, again, stay ahead of the curve. So moving on to the next question and area, San Antonio is the 7th most populous city in America, in contrast to Sioux Falls, that is 120th. So there's obviously a world of difference between the two cities. And so how has this rural or rural adjacent setting influenced your vision for delivering high quality patient care, your clinical offerings and choices, and the perception of the VRA Vision in the community that you serve?
The biggest thing is taking things that I have learned through training and then continuing to stay at the cutting edge and continuing to keep that in our community. I think one of the biggest examples and something that's come into the field is photobiomodulation for retina and macular degeneration. And that's actually a technology that, again, with that nimbleness of being able to start and make quicker decisions to be able to introduce technology, been able to bring that into the practice and start to be a pioneer of moving that beyond the clinical trial setting and how that plays out in community care. So that's one example of several that we're continuing to pursue as we try to strive for continued excellence in our community. So from the standpoint of how I deliver care, I mean, that doesn't change between San Antonio and Sioux Falls. We provide the same level of excellence that somebody might be wanting to expect in a large city here in rural communities. And that, I think, establishes one of the biggest things that's a huge plus that I feel is inherent to a rural setting is you really have people that are traveling from long distances, and they can choose to travel the 4 to 5 hours to your practice, or they can go 4 to 5 hours some other direction. To them, it really doesn't make that much of a difference because it's still driving time and chair time. That is where it boils down to trust that you establish with people. Piece of it really helps to further shape and refine what we're trying to do, which is to bring that trust, to be able to form those foundational relationships, to be able to bring that new cutting edge piece of things from the field to our local doorstep here. So, and then beyond that, the other concern that a lot of people obviously have, just putting it out to the front, is that, a lot of people feel like you might be on an island out in a rural setting. And with the current modern state of things, I really can't say that's been the case. The mentors that I communicated with back in San Antonio, as well as Houston, Galveston, still continue to be there for me via cell phone, modern digital communications. So there's just so many means to take advantage of and to turn our large world into a smaller one, which is better overall for patients and improving the care that we can provide them and serve them.
And Kelly, anything to add?
That's a great question. I believe us serving the patients in the rural or rural adjacent setting where they're driving for hours to get care. I think about the patients who are getting intravitreal injections on anywhere from like a 1 month to 4 month, every so often cycle, and they have to come back to get that injection in the office. You can imagine also our winters are not San Antonio winters, right?
You're probably being reminded of that now. What's the temperature in Sioux Falls right now?
Right now, this week has been forgiving. I will say this week during the day up to about 40, which is, it feels warm.
Oh, wow.
Like I don't even feel like I need a jacket anymore.
Yikes.
But they sure aren't San Antonio Januaries where I can wear shorts, right? We've had snowstorms, we've had random snow that we weren't expecting, and our patients are older. It really impacts how just the cadence of care that uncontrolled factors that there are in this state. And so when I think about from the patient's perspective, having to make that drive to preserve their vision in the cycle that's been recommended, I feel like there's more of an urgency for us to try to adopt technology and innovation faster so that we can serve these patients better. I know there's a lot of exciting new therapies in the pipeline that he talks a lot about. And so I mean, it's going to be great when those are ready to be able to, and some are available now, to be able to offer more options to patients where the hours on driving might be a norm, but it still gets in the way of getting that regular care sometimes, given things like weather and the distance, and then, maybe potentially other health issues if they just have them.
And a lot of your answer that may tie into my next question, but if there's anything you'd add or maybe different about this answer in response, which is, what are the unique healthcare needs you see in your community that maybe weren't as visible or apparent in an urban setting like San Antonio?
I mean, the biggest part being in a northern state at this point in time is macular degeneration is just gigantic piece of the puzzle here. Diabetes comes certainly close, but those are the top two things normally that we see in retina traditionally. Melding that with the component distance that patients have to travel, involving services that include telehealth and bridging into use of newer technologies like home OCT or things that we're looking to continue to develop to make the patient experience as well as the capability of monitoring them with the advantages of newer technologies that allow longer durations of therapy. Kind of a mainstay in what we're trying to do is to give patients back more of their time as we continue to control effectively the diseases that they present to us with.
One other thing I've noticed here is the farming calendar, or the
Huh.
Cape farming, which San Antonio, just the population that I know you were serving, it wasn't really as much of a thing as it is here. It's
Right.
a large farming community, so a lot of farmers trying to fit their appointments and treatments around when they have to harvest or
Huh.
the busy season, which is just it's a reality. And so, kind of meeting them where they're at with, even if they're getting injections, right? They may need some downtime that day or the next day, and just how that impacts their livelihood
Mhm.
is definitely a big consideration up here. Is what I've also noticed.
See, that particular, I mean, that's something I didn't even think of. I mean, because it's what they do. The vast majority of your patient base are farmers and people who work in that industry. Again, crops need to be planted during a certain time of year, harvest, all those things really impact and drive, where they're at certain times of the year. And obviously, would tie into their offices, just like you mentioned. That's a great pearl, and I'm sure that anybody listening, like I did, was shocked at that because it makes so much sense, but you don't think of it because we're not there with you,
Right. There's always a great need to adopt technology and innovation, but
right?
again, really thinking about those folks who do have to come in on that specific cadence to maintain and preserve their sight. It'd be wonderful to offer them longer lasting therapies or reduce that frequency, but still uphold the treatment that they're getting for
Mhm.
things macular degeneration.
So let's turn to the launching of a solar retina practice. In starting VRA Vision, what were the biggest early logistical and clinical challenges you faced? Financing, staffing, technology, procurement, things like that.
Financing is always a major thing when you're starting your practice, wondering how things are going to work out for the first little bit while you're taking the big breath in for those first insurance checks to begin coming forward. I would say, from my perspective, one of the biggest things is making sure you're fitting people in the right roles. I think as a leader and an owner, that's probably one of the biggest challenges that you will, from my perspective, face in getting the work done. I mean, as a physician coming from training, residency, early career and practice, I mean, a lot of what we do is based on how you're able to perform, the knowledge you are able to bring to the table. And then as you move into a leadership role, you now have to optimize the talents and roles of others because there is way more than that you have capable time to do in the day.
Hmm.
And you need excellent people around you that are going to help support you in that. And they are invaluable to what you're doing. And so to me, that's one of the biggest things is really taking time, intentionality to focus on finding the right people, optimizing the talents and the roles that they can bring to the table so that you can move forward and continue to do some of the things that we do best in caring for the patients.
Yes, I can add to that. So hopefully this answer kind of covers a wide range of all the aspects of running a new clinic. It's making sure that we are in the mindset. We have a great opportunity in front of us and still now be able to create our own processes and the way that we do things. We don't have the excuse of, gratefully, that we're just going to do what things have always been done, right? Like we can break out of the mold. It's a great opportunity, but it also forces us and staff to shift our thinking to, maybe from their past experiences at other larger clinics or hospital settings. Well, this is how we've done something, and this is just the way it's done. And it's like, well, we can question that, right? What works for us in a nimble setting where we can move quickly? Also from tech, right? Something that I've brought in is that iterative approach of let's try experiment with something that is not related to like, patient safety, but just like
Right.
other tech or tools or process or steps in something. Let's iterate and just test to see, let's test our hypothesis. Can we make this 1% better? And we talk about that concept as well. Can we make it 1% better? Because then every day, if it's 1% better each day, it's 100% better in 100 days. So bring that into kind of helping our staff really kind of think in that way of we don't have to improve it by like 180%, but what are little tweaks we can all do to be better together? And that just requires a lot of intentionality. That requires us to kind of to change those mental models, which, can take a lot of effort and intention.
So this next question is actually for you, Kelly. Your background, experience, and expertise in RevOps uniquely positions you to see and do things differently. And again, you may have answered some of this along the way, but from an operational standpoint, what systems or strategies have been key to building structure, workflow efficiencies, and growth steps in a new specialty practice from the start? And how has this approach prevented you from making often common and costly mistakes that would otherwise hinder or hold back the early success of VRA Vision?
That's a good question. Off the top, everyone uses the EHR. We use
Right.
one. I have a background with Salesforce.
Okay.
Really know Salesforce like the back of my hand, 10 plus years in it. And so coming from a world-class platform like Salesforce to the EHR world, and we use a specific one, there's actually quite a lot of challenges. I think I know enough about the process of software development and how like good software should work, and that it's all about implementation to kind of seeing what is available. Sometimes it does leave a lot to be desired. If something isn't working as that I would expect or as seamlessly as one would hope to expect, I can kind of poke and prod with my customer success team and be like, hey, but shouldn't this be able to do this? Or I guess that's just one small example of how technology is so important here. HRs are, the bread and butter of where everything is documented. We all live in it, the practice management tool side of it as well, the appointment reminder. So I just kept my like RevOps hat on for evaluating tools effectively
Mm-hmm.
and also be able to quickly make decisions if something isn't working to like, how can we make it better? I think one thing I also bring is making sure that the problem statement is clear. Unless you know exactly what you're solving for, you're just kind of spinning your wheels, right? So when someone says this is broken or this just isn't working, it's really having the ability to break down, okay, like what is not working? Like what is your expectation? And then like what is not matching that specifically so that I can help solve the problem. The key is to identify the problem first.
Well, here's one of the things that as you're telling me that I'm processing what you're telling me is that I know with ophthalmologists, I've worked with them for the better part of the last 15, 20 years, is all about pattern recognition. It's a very similar, because you've been where you've been on the software and IT side, you know what you're looking at. I would say the vast majority of people in your role at any given practice don't have that experience or skill set or that pair of eyes to recognize things that, is this the right software for us, or I'm just listening to the sales guy or the SaaS person. And again, chances are you could probably figure out how to really tweak and really tailor those systems to match your specific needs versus somebody who may not have your background and skill set and experience. The first thing they're doing is calling the IT guy and the help desk.
Right.
So I think all those things add to efficiency. So you are in a really great position to really, again, move quickly and avoid a lot of those landmines that I think a lot of other practices and people in your role aren't equipped to really handle. So kudos to you.
A lot of things in life are about communication, and she really has been a huge facilitator to making sure communication goes smoothly in those realms. Not too dissimilar to a lot of people would probably appreciate having a translator for the doctor in the room sometimes with the terminology that we use. It's nice to have her there to be that powerful mind in the room to be able to translate what I understand from my medical clinical background into the realm of what she is just very apt and capable of having experience and training in, and that's the technical realm. And so it's been a huge asset to have her with us in the practice and you bringing her perspective.
Yeah, I kind of see everything as an orchestration, right? It's you're orchestrating systems, but you're not just orchestrating systems, you're orchestrating people to use those systems and the whole process. And
Hmm.
here, management is an orchestration. You're orchestrating the patient experience in a way, the flow of like check-in to, seeing the doctor, checkout process, the appointment scheduling process, orchestrating the systems as well to go with it, orchestrating the staff to help, where helping them go where they need to be and perform how they need to perform, and orchestrating with the back end, just other admin stuff. Yeah, I just kind of see it as like this master orchestration. And so in the past, it might have been done one way, but now in this setting, you're still up here moving things around and making sure that it's optimal. And of course, there's bumps along the way. Who doesn't
Hmm.
have
Yeah, they're to be
but
expected.
with that iterative feedback mindset, you're not stuck in one place. It's always on the go. You're always learning and improving. So the cycle continues.
I love the analogy of orchestration because any good conductor in front of an orchestra, they're, putting together a symphony, and any great conductor knows that, hey, you know what? That note was off. And they have that deeper
Yeah.
perception. And again, you've built this thing to perfection. So you know when something is off or a note doesn't get hit right. And
Yep.
so again, I think between the two of you in your respective areas are able to have that sixth sense, that hypersensitive, awareness that, that's not working for us, as you mentioned before. Let's
Yeah.
get that corrected quickly, and again keep moving on. So wow, that was a good exchange, and I'm glad you guys were able to share that part of the perspective of the conversation. So let's turn to technology, equipment, and innovation. So as we all know, retina care is highly technology driven. How do you decide what equipment or diagnostic tools to invest in first, and how do you balance bringing in cutting edge tech with running an efficient, cost-effective, and profitable practice? And you mentioned, I think it's the photo therapy. I think it's called Valeda, I believe, from your website. Use that as an example. And for members of our audience who aren't familiar with Valeda, please share what that is and what that treatment offers your patients.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, again, seeing the macular degeneration population that we have in the area, having gone through training experience, I'm telling people in those stages, the main things that you can do are eye vitamins, diet rich in green leafy vegetables, and making sure you're not smoking. That's kind of the role that you get into for certain disease states. And then as you continue to explore, look into literature, see what's coming forward, and how can I apply that to my situation, my patients, to make their lives better. Photobiomodulation was something that was very intriguing, and when I heard about it at the national meeting, and then kind of had an opportunity to delve into it, look at it with some of the experts that had helped with the development of the technology, and it's been something that the integration with an already busy retina clinic, we have a therapy that's designed to expose individuals to essentially wavelengths of red and yellow light to improve mitochondrial activity in the retina. And then from that, try to subsequently improve the reduction of atrophy and growth, in addition to having a potential functional impact within the technology that was identified through that LightSight 3 clinical trial and further evaluated through the LightSight 3B longitudinal phase of the study. The treatments are delivered once every period for 9 treatments over a period of
Hmm.
3 to 5 weeks. So it's really, kind of as we balance trying to get people out with wet macular degeneration therapies and extended, this is one of those things that does increase treatment frequency visits. So balancing a little bit of that with an already bustling clinic for injections and treatments related to wet macular degeneration. Now we fortunately do have something that can bring something for dry and try to act in more of a preventative care strategy to slow things down before it gets to the point where we're needing to talk about pushing to low vision therapy services or introducing other intravitreal injections that are now available for dry macular degeneration. And that's, it's really been a way that when I was processing through it, how do we implement, how do we decide that this is a technology for us? At this point in time, it was something that provided an add to the realm and area of dry macular degeneration that just hasn't been there before. And we've really had a very positive patient response, which I think not only is driven through the availability and excitement of the new technology, but also through the trust that we've taken to procure the system in a manner that focuses on, is it going to actually benefit our patients? And that's been a huge piece of, I think, making the program successful, is making sure we've got those established relationships with patients ahead. so that they're willing to continue to move forward with us as we try to push into the new territories of therapies and what's available.
I guess to kind of really reframe the question for you, obviously you guys opened, I think, was it June or July of last year? Is that correct? Yeah, yeah. So this is something obviously, Dr. Assam, you were excited about and wanted to add as one of your main and first investments. Not sure how much this technology and treatment and what goes into it, but weighing the benefits, as you were saying, Dr. Assam, that this brings to the clinic and the patients from a revenue perspective, and doesn't make sense when you kind of make those financial decisions from your end administratively. Kelly, what does that look like, and how did you end up supporting that decision and agreeing like, yeah, this is the right investment for us right now in the beginning?
Absolutely. Thank you. Knowing that for dry AMD, truly it's just been injections so far, and to be able to offer a new innovative approach that's also, I mean, it's like little to no risk for the patient. Maybe I wouldn't say no risk, but very, very minimal.
Sure.
Because it's no downtime. It's basically, I think about, for just outside of the medical world, how a lot of people like have adopted those laser masks for their skin, and just how popular and common that is now. I think if, folks want to try something very easy and low risk and potentially has only the upside, then it just was kind of an easy decision for us to be able to, again, as a new practice, be able to move quickly and offer something that no one else in the region had at the time, and just another option for patients. Especially, again, we talk about just being quick to adopt technology. We want to be the innovative clinic where we're not scared to bring something new, as long as the research evaluates is sound and is safe and effective. Then for us, it seemed like, along with the clinic opening, an easy decision.
So, I mean, not in my line of questioning, but I got to ask, because I think that in our conversation as we prep for the show, that you were saying that in the Sioux Falls region, that there's only like 2, 3 small handful of vitreoretina specialists. Is this true?
From the immediate Sioux Falls area, and only one of 6 in the state.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems like it would be under. Is that right size for the population? I mean, it seems like low to me. I mean, it's not surprising you have a busy clinic.
Absolutely. There's always more work to be done, and that's kind of what the staff has continued to find. I mean, the need is definitely there. It's good to be needed from starting a new practice perspective, and also just from fulfilling the role as a physician. But it does provide a lot of, kind of balancing. How do we continue to serve people well that are coming through the doors every day, while trying to reach out and further that need. And that's where people like Kelly have been instrumental in bringing the ability to kind of force multiply through tech industry and the tools that are available to be able to bring some of that to bear. So it's been an exciting process to work on together as we've gone through this.
Yeah, we've been doing the typical, outreach of just letting people know that we're here. We offer all the retina services. And historically, there's been one primary other practice in town. And so, you mentioned like one of 4 in the city. So, just again, with patients driving long distances, that's kind of a reason why there's not a lot of the retina specialists in the state or the area. But of course, the demand and the need is there. And so that's why we're happy to be here and be able to service those patients.
And so you mentioned earlier that, you really had to quickly adopt, more so than say like a San Antonio or larger metropolitan area, emerging technologies that are clearly here to stay, things like AI. So how would you position things like AI, telemedicine, or remote imaging, and how do you integrate them as part of your current practice model, especially for scheduling, follow-up care, or screening in underserved areas of the region that you live and serve?
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point in time, I mean, the biggest way for communication is just making sure that you're making yourself accessible to the people that you're serving from a referral basis. So optometric, general medicine, other ophthalmology, going out on practice development, as Kelly said, that's been establishing those traditional inroads, and then preparing the pipeline with AI. We've been beginning to integrate a AI search engine for a research standpoint as we prepare that side of the practice. So there's AI companies out there that have built an AI platform that is able to search through patient data, kind of serve as almost a CRO type role as their niche that they're looking for, where they facilitate connections between the clinic to industry. And that's kind of been a way to help to work on this initial database that kind of develops from starting your own clinic. And then from there, as you grow and showing the numbers that you need to be able to provide value to the industry and to research that can help improve people's lives moving forward. That's where we kind of see initial AI development facilitating into our clinic.
And I also know the imaging monitoring is an exciting area. It can be a very exciting area for, again, bringing on and adopting new technologies to hopefully service those patients who are having to travel to us to see what's happening in their eye.
As we've begun to introduce, specifically, as you might be aware, the realm of macular degeneration is really kind of where the home OCT, diabetic retinopathy is another one where we see a lot more of that. And as we've begun to establish the relationships with patients to be able to introduce longer term therapies and technologies, we've also been able to start having that conversation as a piece of that, kind of layering in the approach of how do we build off of the foundations that we've begun laying. And that's at this point in time how we've started to introduce that.
So, patient experience and access. How do you tailor the patient experience in a solar retina clinic from first consult through treatment to build trust, especially with complex cases and conditions affecting the back of the eye?
Absolutely. I mean, it starts at the front desk, having people that are able to smile and welcome people. I've told all the staff that one of the biggest things that you can change for people is how they feel they're perceived and welcomed. And, people that come to a retina clinic are not the ones that are looking to be there because they want to be there, because they need to be there. And the thing that we can change about their day is how we make them feel. And so from the very start of the entry into the clinic, being greeted with a warm smile. The technicians that we have are amazing in being able to not only procure the history, but to establish relationship and rapport, things from writing simple notes to remind them of who that person is, to be able to refresh and recapture a moment that they might have had from the prior, to let them know that we do care. It's really built around the little things and how you interact day to day with the patient. And then to my standpoint, once they go through that process of being worked up and they're being able to make them feel like they're heard. I really do have a strong emphasis on trying to let them get through the full piece of their history, being able to walk through and try to explain things in a manner that they can appreciate at their level of understanding, and then to be able to bring it around to a full piece of, assessing their treatment in a way that really focuses on what they're able to do from their standpoint. Some things are possible and other things might not be realistic at this time. And really trying to be frank about that when we have the conversation of treatments and therapies and what is it going to do for them and their vision and in terms of their goals of achieving what they want to do with their life overall.
Mhm.
And I know that he has a big emphasis on taking the time, I think, is where he was going to sit down and take the time with the patients. Yeah, I know that's a big focus of yours, and also being accessible to patients and their questions and being able to reach him, if there's any kind of urgent matter over the weekend, that's something that we have in our phone lines as well. So I think that's where that trust building comes from, because he's willing to sit down and really go over and explain to the patients, meeting them where they're at, essentially, because it's a very scary thing to lose sight or have to preserve vision.
So one of the things that I think, and you can speak to this as well, is in a larger setting, like say a large hospital system, a very much a large clinic, a PE group setting or environment, fast paced, high volume, and expectation by any patient going in is like, you know what? Not that it's negative, but it's just kind of just comes with the territory. I'm going to wait for a lot, and it's going to be, and no one's going to listen to me. It's going to be very transactional. Whereas in a smaller solo independent practice like yours, I think the expectation is higher because it's just you, and they want to be listened to, have that high level of engagement, not a transaction, but an interaction. And it sounds like you and your approach and your mindset and your philosophy is to have have that level of engagement with your patients, because really that's the burden or the blessing, if you will. That things slow down, you can pivot quickly. And when you make business decisions, but when it comes to the patient, things need to slow down, and they want to be able to have that relationship and talk to them. And then obviously the listening skills. And you mentioned earlier about your team, that it's not just you, that has to be, they have to be an extension of that and share that same philosophy. And it sounds like you guys have a great team and you guys engage in some of those practices at VRA Vision.
And what I'll tell people is the extra 2 minutes it takes to listen can save you 2 hours down the road. It really is a
Okay.
matter of kind of establishing things ahead of time. If you set expectations appropriately, if you're able to hear people out at the beginning, that facilitates the trust that you need to move efficiently later on. And then also it gives them, that being the patient, the confidence that if they need you to stop and listen to them, that you will. And so that's been a huge piece.
Yeah, and I'll just add, it's funny because no matter how much I want to make things efficient, right? At the end of the day, that's something that I can't cut out and I don't want to, like the patient engagement with doctor. And sometimes, we're not a large clinic, but we have to kind of ask, like, where is Dr. Assam? Oh, he's caught up in this patient room for however many minutes. And it's because he's taking the time to really explain, which obviously pays dividends in that relationship and trust that he's able to build, like you said. So I can orchestrate all around that of the systems and, the process to make an appointment and whatnot. But I know at the end of the day, that time that he is having with the patient, that is why, like the time and FaceTime they get is why they're there. So that's not something that I want to just cut out, for example.
Well, I think it's the nature of patients that they don't mind waiting as long as they get that same amount of time and care and engagement with the doctor. Like, you know what? As long as I'm not in and out in 2 minutes and that they're not just looking at the screen and putting my data and let AI do the rest of the work. As long as I get the same as that first guy that I waited 45 minutes for, I'm cool with it. And not only that, I think what's also important to recognize is that, as you mentioned before, that these folks isn't just like an annual checkup. These folks come in routinely in frequency over a period of, 8, 9, 10 weeks for certain injections and other treatments. So you want to be able to set the tone in the beginning, and what I guess set their expectation on what their patient experience and journey is going to be like at VRA Vision.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's talk about some clinical practice pearls. Office-based surgery for cataract refractive practices is commonplace, accepted, and pretty widespread. What are your thoughts on office-based surgery for vitreoretinal procedures, and how would that model fit into practicing in a rural setting? And I guess to follow that up, how do you decide what's best, how to best treat a condition, whether it's in an OBS setting or a surgical center?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we've definitely had thoughts and consideration about it. I'm very fortunate to have an excellent surgical center that I go to now that provides great access. I know that that's just reading peer review journals and surveys. That is something that is truly becoming a national issue, is accessibility for retina surgery. Unfortunately, we have not had that great of an issue here at this time. Office-based surgery, I have gone to several different meetings and seminars regarding. I think it does provide some very excellent pieces to access and answers some of the concerns that we have regarding that. It's certainly not for every case. There are still going to be some of those situations that require general anesthesia, full monitoring to be able to get those done. Things like scleral buckles or more involved retina surgeries that can take multiple hours. Those are things that I don't foresee office-based surgery being the full answer to at this point in time, but it has, in practice, for many that I've talked to, become a very excellent source. And we've definitely considered it in our practice. A piece of starting in the first 6 months is just making sure we've got the clinical groundwork there and establish those relationships to move forward some of the ideas that we've talked about. But definitely could see it being a valuable add going forward in the future.
Anything to add to that, Kelly?
Yeah, I would just kind of echo what he said. And we talk about the orchestration of, the first 6 months. Now we have that under our belts. I think 2026, there's a lot to look forward to, and always looking to optimize the operation side of things. So kind of, we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, probably not looking at it now because you're not. It's something down the road, but that obviously impacts, administratively how the clinic operates. Now you have a surgery center inside your building. There's a whole new set of billing and all. I mean, I think puts more on your plate administratively. So it's something that, when you decide to consider that, there's a lot to look at. But again, given your background, you'll do it in your sleep.
Yeah. And I look at, the next like 6 to 12 months, what in the list of priorities and like what's in the backlog. And I think about, again, just with a lot of the new therapies coming down the pipe for retina and the urgency, like I mentioned, to serve our rural patients who are having to travel quite a ways to get that care. I think research sounds really exciting, but that is also a very major commitment. So kind of taking it one day at a time, that 1% better, and 100 days will be 100% better, and 1,000 days will be 1,000% better.
Dr. Assam, you mentioned earlier how important, team building and your people, and I would agree 100%. If you don't have the people to execute and share, your vision, you're not going to get very far. So
Mhm.
what qualities do you prioritize when building your clinical and administrative teams, and how do you foster a collaborative culture in your practice that mirrors your values, shared patient focus, and mission?
Yeah, very good question. I would say probably one of the biggest aspects that I look for is people that are kind of hungry. They're wanting to learn, they're eager, they're wanting to be learning new things all the time. I do look for that curiosity when I interview people. And so to me, that's probably one of the biggest things that you can't replace
Yeah.
is a inherent curiosity to learn. Beyond that, having people that, in a retina clinic, things still do move fast. And so needing people that are eager to work quickly is another piece, and then reliability is another factor. That's probably one of the biggest things that I've found starting in a new practice is, everybody has priorities in life, and making sure that those priorities align with reliability to being able to support the mission that we are doing has been a key piece. And so I find that that's something that I also continue to look for more and more as we move ahead.
Yeah. And likewise, I think that in a small team setting, reliability is huge, right? Because we don't have a deep bench of folks. But we got a whole planned day. So that, and then the curiosity I'll echo as well. Someone who, yeah, hungry to learn is important, since there's a lot in retina. If, you don't come from the ophthalmology or retina world, there's this little part of the body is so complex. So I would say those are really important characteristics.
Yeah, and I think commentary wise, from what we've heard from some people that we've employed with prior experience, is that there is really not an ability to just kind of settle into a full comfort zone, because we are looking for the next thing to be able to move the ball forward. And that it takes a certain personality to be willing to move like that and to not just settle into a routine. And I think that's a way to keep moving things forward.
Especially with the mindset of 1% better, right? Like, what else can we do? Kind of always looking
Hmm.
to
Mhm.
optimize.
So one of the things that automatically comes to mind, and could be just my own, uh, I guess, stereotype, that being, a smaller, rural setting, the candidates to consider, the amount of candidates to consider in the talent pool, I guess, in Sioux Falls versus San Antonio, Galveston, Dallas, Houston. I mean, you really got to get that right, because the line's not out the door just based on population.
Hmm.
I mean, is that something that you have to grapple and contend with to really hone in on your hiring practices and really ask the right questions to make sure you got the right person on your team?
Yes, I would say so. And that's a reality that we face for sure. And we mentioned, there's not a lot of ophthalmology in the area, or retina to begin with, and then
Mhm.
ophthalmology, and then you kind of go from there. For us, we have implemented a 3-tier hiring interview process.
Huh.
So I do a lot of the screenings, and then we have our clinic manager, who's an RN, who does manage the techs, do that second layer screening if they pass the first one, since she'll be managing directly and knows more intimately about all the clinic tasks and whatnot. And then third, if they pass to that round, will be with doctor. And I think so. After that, actually, then we do a clinic visit for a shadowing of a couple hours, and so they can see what the job is about. They can see where we are. We have a tight space, so we don't have a huge break room or anything like that. So an interview is always, it's two ways, right? We want to make sure that they're the right candidate to fit within our great team. And then we also want them to know exactly what they're signing up for and who they'll be working with and what the expectations are. And so we try to make it as transparent as possible. But yes, the talent pool is just not as large. There's certainly a lot of talented individuals here, but just based on the ophthalmology, retina presence compared to a larger city is not the same. So
Mhm.
part of that too in ops is helping to build that training program. It's not quite a program. It's a little bit of you see one, you do one, and we walk you through every step of the way with it.
Mhm.
But I'm always transparent and say, we're not a large health system where you've got, a whole month to train. You're going to be boots on the ground and shadowing and very hands-on, which I
Mhm.
do think a lot of folks prefer, but we move quickly. So that training piece of things is definitely always on our minds, and how do we improve based on the feedback that we get? That iterative approach again.
One of the first things that you had said was the part of your criteria, Dr. Sam, was the person has to be curious and willing to learn. And I think that fits in perfectly. I'm not surprised, given the number of candidates and again, the population pool and this kind of thing, that person may only, if they're excited and willing to learn what they need to learn, you can teach them. And as leaders and trainers and administrators, and you can invest in those folks and really, it's almost a blessing really, because you can shape and develop them in the mold of what you want them to look like and how you want them to perform, engage with the patients. And so it's actually, I think, almost turn that curse into a blessing because you have control even over that to a certain extent.
Yeah, 100%. And he loves to teach. So it's the right person comes along and asks the right questions, he will help explain.
He does have like a professorial way about him. Finally, as someone who was born, raised, and returned to a rural state to practice medicine, it was probably likely an easier decision for you than most. But if you were to have any advice, recommendation, or words of wisdom for anyone curious or considering following your lead that would lure them from Los Angeles to Laramie, Boston to Billings, or Miami to Muskogee, what would it be?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a very great and deep question. As far as rural focus state and practice, again, the biggest piece of it, I think, focuses on being able to establish relationships in the community and build trust much more quickly. I'm definitely biased. The Midwest is home for me, and so I am coming in with that perspective. In terms of choice and decision making, I think it becomes less impersonal and more personal in my perspective
100%.
would be how I would kind of caveat that at this point in time. You really have that opportunity to become, to almost the cliche of the town doctor, so to speak. You really get to be that person that people come to know and rely on from a very broad range, not just your immediate town or city, but
And not just for
in the
patients
broader
either.
region.
Yeah,
So
for the referrals.
it provides its own unique opportunities with that. There are the obvious challenges that somebody coming from a larger city might look at in terms of accessibility to certain conveniences and comforts, but I think the rewards of the patient relationship trust establishment and what you're able to accomplish is well worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I would say I think building a community, even if it's not immediately physical, of getting support for others who might have done this before in a certain regard, maybe not the exact same way or in the exact same setting. We certainly pulled in folks that we knew who had kind of done it in other states. And just to be able to rely on their nuggets of wisdom, right, is huge. And so now having gone through the first 6 months of operation, but longer than that to get this clinic up and running, I am so happy to be a resource for others to be like, you know what? Yeah, that was hard. I'd be lying if I said, yeah, it was a piece of cake, like no problem. Everything came through naturally and wonderfully and everything just fell into place. But we've done it now, right? And so having gone through it, it is absolutely hard. It's all consuming of your life. However, it is doable. We're still here. We hope to still be here, right? And so again, approaching it from a very methodical perspective, I am happy to be that resource and just help others realize it's not impossible. It's absolutely doable. That relationship piece is key, I think, to anything to do well. It's not just a transaction.
Dr. Assam and Kelly, thank you both for this incredibly insightful and enlightening conversation. From your inspiring professional journeys to real-world challenges and opportunities of independent retinal practice in the Midwest. Your vision, leadership, and dedication clearly shine through in the care you deliver and the community that you're building. I wish you all the best in moving forward. And so for our members of our audience who want to learn more about VRA Vision and rural ophthalmology, how can they get in touch with you?
Yes, they can email info@VRAvision.com or visit our website, VRAvision.com, and just kind of say, hey, we saw you on this podcast. Would love to connect about X topic. And we'll reply. We'll respond. We'll connect. Would love to connect, actually. Please do reach out.
Well, cool. Well, thanks for sharing that as well. I'm sure you'll be getting folks contacting you in the future. So to our audience, as you guys know, the Q Switch Conversations podcast is my personal way of giving back to an eye care industry and community that shaped my career, my perspective, and my passion for what we do. This platform is truly built for you, the clinicians, the innovators, and change makers redefining what's possible in our field. So if you've got a fresh perspective, a unique experience, or know someone doing great things in eye care, I'd love to have you on the show. So you can hit me up on my LinkedIn or drop me a note at d.spence@meridian.ch. As always, we'd like to thank Riverside FM and Passionate Media for making this show happen, and of course, Meridian Medical for making it all possible. That's a wrap for this episode of the Q Switch Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Spence, and I am out.
You're listening to The Q Switch with your host, Spence.